So now that we have the basic setup for the car and the stats for the car, let's go and add some sound effects and kind of polish out what happens when the car, let's say, slide, skid or stuff like that. So I'm gonna do two things. One is for skidding, so when the car kind of starts sliding side to side, and then I'm going to add also the car impact, so when the car falls and then the car springs kind of take a lot of pressure, we are going to do some effect. Now these audio effects I just tried searching for in the library for city samples. They're not perfect for the job, but they do nicely enough where we can kind of see the distinction between sounds. Let me also increase the audio a bit so you can hear the background effects or the car effects. So let's start from 0 and let me lead you through on how I created these effects. So first thing that I had to do, since some variables were not exposed in the vehicle movement component, is I just added chaos vehicle wheeled vehicle movement. So you can add that through by clicking add and then typing chaos and finding this one. And they're basically identical, but this chaos wheeled vehicle component has exposed some stuff. So in here what we can do is expose this, which is our wheel states. And wheel states gives us a bunch of information about our wheels. So are they slipping, are they in contact with something, what is their physical material, stuff like that. So are they skidding? So we get a bunch of those information that we do not get from the base one component. So what I did is just added this component, but now we have two of them, and this one cannot be deleted because it's kind of part of this class, part of the wheeled vehicle pawn. So what I did in here is first copied everything. So what you can do is just right click and copy these little tabs. You cannot copy the main tab, so you cannot click right click in here, but if you click right click in here you can copy, and then instead of going individual and changing all of this inside this component, you can just copy paste. So I went through and did that everywhere. So right click, copy paste. You can copy paste curves, individual variables, and then sometimes these sub tabs. After you set everything up in here, I just swapped all the places where we had this vehicle movement component. So it was like this, connected to, of course we cannot do vehicle state, but it was connected to some other things that we set up in the beginning. So something like here. So all of this were connected through the vehicle movement component, but we want this other one. So I changed this everywhere where I needed to. And you can easily figure out where it's used if you click on the component, right click, and then get references. And we can see that we only use it in the begin plate to disable it. So this is where I disable this component, so we have only one that is working. And I also changed the same thing in the speed meter, so you can get updates on how fast the car is going. So I changed it in here also. And now that we have that set up, next thing that I did is just create a new car effects function. In here you can just click plus, create new function. And in here we'll be basically doing the effects. So here is the starting and stopping the sound for skidding, and then here is the starting and stopping or just playing the sound when we land a bit more harshly, or our spring is under a lot of stress all of a sudden. I'm just gonna pull this back. I'm just gonna clean this up a bit. So we have two things. This is I'm just going to segregate this so you know what's happening. So there is few things happening in this car effect function, and that function is activated on the event tick. So every tick we are tracking if some effects needs to be enabled, disabled, activated, stuff like that. And when this function enables, we first reset some variables that I'm going to explain later. But the main thing here is our for loop. So what we do is get how many wheels we have in our car. And this is just to make it a bit more dynamic. Maybe we at some point have like 10 wheels, 12 wheels. This just tracks how many wheels you have. and then you go through the index. So these indexes are from 0 to 3 for the 4 wheels, and then from, let's say, 0 to 4 for 5 wheels, stuff like that. And they are related to this index here where you set up your wheels. So 0, 1, 2, and 3 are our indexes. And then we loop through each wheel and we check the state of that wheel and check if something needs to happen. And we have this sequence which tells us we want this thing separately to be checked and then this one separately. We could kind of keep it everything in just one execution, but then we'll have a bunch of branches. If this happens, if this is true, if this is not true, stuff like that. So if you segregate it like this, it's way easier to manage and work with. So this first sequence is activated and it just checks our spring force, and if our spring force is at some point over this number, so the spring when it's under stress it goes between 3 million to 3.3 or 3.4 million. So I found kind of a sweet spot by changing the number and then testing it in a car, trying to find sweet spot when I want to activate this sound, which is kind of some impact sound. Not the best for this type of effect, but it's kind of something appropriate that I found in the sound effects for the city sample, for the matrix city sample. So that's just what happens here. If any wheel gets over this number, this is activated with some volume multiplier. It's a bit lower, so if 2 or 3 tires hit ground really hard, then the volume will be multiplied because you will have 2 or 3 sounds activated. And you could do this a bit differently. You could use, so maybe you could take this and then do normalize to range. Then we can say maybe 3 million. Let's see, this is 3 million. And then let's say 3,400,000. So you could say this, that whatever number you get, so it's maybe if you do 3.1 million, that would be a 0.25, and then if you do a harder crash, it's louder. So you could do something like this, but for now, to keep it simple, I just set it up like this. So if it's just higher than this number, we just play the sound. Next thing that we're checking is our skidding. So is our car wheels kind of sliding, and if they are sliding, we enable this, and this any tire skidding is my variable that I created that is used after this loop is completed. So if any tire is skidding, this is just going to be enabled, and then the sound will be activated. And if there is no skidding, the component won't be created, but after we skid for the first time, we are going to create this skidding sound audio component, and this audio component will basically play some sound that I found that is called skid. So it kind of is the sound that we need, but yeah, not the best for our car environment, but that's fine. We're not trying to kind of create a perfect sound for this, just kind of create proof of concept. So we are first checking any tire skidding. If any tire set this variable to true, this is going to enable. And now if you remember here, these two variables, before we do any loop checks, I'm setting everything to 0 and disabled. So we don't want to, for the enabled to stay on each tick, we want to reset it each tick. So you can kind of check it again and again. And if it's true, we're just checking if this component exists. If it does exist and it's playing, don't do anything because it's already playing. You don't have to do anything. And then if it's false, we are spawning the sound with a volume that is a combination of skidding amount of each wheel. So we get that skidding amount in here, where we get our skid magnitude, and then we set it absolute, so we always want it to be positive. Then we normalize it to range. So this is just kind of trial and error that I did, where I normalize it to range for each wheel, and then we get a number, and the number for each wheel cannot be greater than 1.2, since yeah, it could be, but I noticed that usually it's only 1 or 2 wheels that are actually skidding. So this is kind of something that I made. This is purely experimental. You could do it in many different ways, but you have this magnitude of each wheel, how much it is skidding, and then you can use it to drive the actual volume. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting my volume, and this is done 4 times for each wheel. I'm getting what volume is already there, which would be 0 at the beginning, but maybe more if this is third or second or fourth wheel that we are checking. And then we are adding it to the kind of complete to the total volume count or number, and then we use that total volume to set it to volume multiplier, which can be like 0 0.5, 0 0.8, 1.5, stuff like that. And if it's false, we're trying to stop the sound. So the sound is kind of rough when it stops, so there's no kind of drop down or fade out of the sound for the skidding, so I kind of just stop it right in its tracks when I find out that the sound that the tires are not skidding anymore. And that's about it for these 2 wheels and the effects. So let's go into the game and see how it sounds. So if I go into the car, actually before we go, I have one more thing that I just remembered. So that is all fine. I don't think we had anything here done. But I remember that I also have this delay. So since when the car is spawned, there is a lot of effects that happen when the car is spawned, and one of the effects was that my springs were activating really hard, so you would hear the crashing or the loud sound of when the spring force is active at the beginning, and I don't want that to happen. So what I did is set a delay for before our ticks even start to work on this object. So if I go here, this will be enabled for you, so I disable this, so there is no ticks in the beginning. We are not trying to figure out any effects, but after half a second they're enabled, and then we start ticking when the car kind of settles in the scene. So if we go into the car, and hopefully you can hear the sound. There is also some other sounds from the city sample that are automatically activated. I did not figure out how to disable them, but yeah, I'm gonna try to work through them. So let's try now the crashing sound. So hopefully you heard the thump, and let's try again in here. So you can hear there is some skidding sounds, and of course our crashing sound where our springs are a lot under force.